Hello everyone, I'm Mandy Lockley and welcome to On Purpose Astrology. And today I'm going to be talking about a really exciting, I'm going to share the screen so that you can see what I'm talking about, a very exciting astrological event that's happening on April the 21st. If you're 3 hours behind the UK time, then it will be on the 20th, but anywhere sort of in Europe or to the west of Europe, it will be April the 21st. We have Jupiter conjunct Uranus. I've called this talk Excitement, Change and Awakenings, and that will give you some clues as to some of the themes and energies of this actually quite exciting conjunction. Now, Jupiter and Uranus have a 13 and 14-year cycle. It's one of the big mundane astrology cycles. Mundane astrology basically means not mundane as in boring, but mundane as in world astrology. So we can track the Jupiter cycle, Jupiter Uranus cycle, to events and progress. It's very much about progress, human progress, breakthroughs. We can track that. And I will be using some of the big events that have happened in previous conjunctions, especially between Jupiter and Uranus, to illuminate. That's another word as well for Jupiter conjunct Uranus, illumination. It was the first electric light bulb came into being during a Jupiter Uranus conjunction. So that's to give you just a little bit of a flavor. But first of all, look at Jupiter on its own. What does Jupiter mean? Well, Jupiter's about growth. It's about expansion. It expands. It tends to expand anything that it touches. It's about confidence and belief and self-belief and faith. It's about taking risks, risk taking on the negative side, but also sometimes getting out of our comfort zone, those little risks we sometimes need to take to change things in our lives. As I said, it's very important for world cycles, world events, but also, especially if it touches your chart, and I'll tell you how it might, if it might touch your chart, what to look out for shortly. On the personal level as well, all these excitement, changing, awakenings, as above, so below. What happens out in the world reflects what happens in our lives if it touches us profoundly. So, Jupiter, as I said, growth, confidence, expansion. Uranus is about awakenings, it's about breakthroughs. It's unpredictable. So, when we have Uranus transits, it's unpredictable. With Jupiter, that can often expand that unpredictability. It wakes us up. It's change. It's sudden and unexpected change. Breakthroughs, paradigm shifts, eureka moments. It's also associated with exploration and innovation. A few examples that I'll tell you about, you'll see that innovation and that exploration in action from previous conjunctions, but we can also think about exploration and innovation in our own lives as well. So when they get together, Jupiter conjunct Uranus, when they get together, also when they come in opposition and also come in squares, but we're looking at the beginning of the cycle, the birth of this new cycle here, this April. April, you might have noticed if you follow astrology, and sort of late March is a really intense and interesting time astrologically. We are still getting used to Pluto in the very early stages of Aquarius, so a big change there in the Pluto world. And we're in the middle of, at the moment, as I record this, on the 27th of March, we're in the middle of the eclipse season. So we've had an eclipse in the 25th of March, and then the 8th of April, we'll have a total solar eclipse, which is a big event in itself. So there's a lot going on. So there's a lot of energy. So hopefully I'm going to give you some examples, also give you some ideas to think about how to make the most of this intense, but also exciting energy. So when Jupiter and Uranus get together, exciting things can happen. So historical events. Historical events that seem to happen under Jupiter conjunct Uranus. As I say, it's the beginnings of something that can be big. And in a lot of cases, things that can have a huge world-changing impact. In the personal sense, it can be things that have a life-changing impact on your own world, on your own life. So let's look at some of these innovations, changes, awakenings that happened in previous conjunctions of Jupiter and Uranus that have changed the world. So it was under a Jupiter conjunct Uranus that the Wright brothers did their first aviation experiments. Now look, we can book a flight today, we can fly off to the other side of the world tomorrow if we want to. A lot of us fly for travel, for experience, to broaden our horizons, to learn more about the world, to look at different cultures. That's all very Jupiterian. And Uranus is very much about aviation and flight and heights, new heights. So that's changed the world. That's changed the way we live. It's made the world smaller, but it's opened the world up as well. The invention of the light bulb, I've already mentioned, awakening moments, light bulb moments, eureka moments. The light bulb was put into action, was used for the first time during Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Now, Louis Pasteur, this is a really interesting one. Louis Pasteur, he was a chemist, he proved his germ theory of fermentation, which revolutionized the brewing industry, which led to the invention or the discovery of pasteurization, so that beer was full of bacteria before, and after pasteurization it was safe and it was clean to drink. That led on to pasteurization for all sorts of things, milk and cheeses, etc., etc., etc. So that saved a lot of lives, or it saved a lot of people's health. So that was under the 1857 conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus. And then on the next conjunction in 1879, he had previously been working on vaccinations. Vaccinations wasn't a thing. In 1879, he proved his vaccination theory was correct by successfully inoculating chickens against disease. I think it was chicken cholera. Now, of course, what would we do without vaccines? What would we have done without the vaccine during the coronavirus? Incredible innovation that all started, incredible innovation during the pandemic in the speed and the techniques that they used to create the vaccinations. But also, there's often a little bit of pushback. So the pushback here with Pasteur was because he wasn't a medical doctor, a physician. The medical profession, the doctors, were slow to trust his innovation. They didn't think he was really qualified. So there was that little bit of almost rebellion against what he was trying to do. And we've seen that as well during the pandemic, haven't we, with the anti-vax sort of, the anti-vax movement. But we can honestly say that vaccinations have changed things for people. Again, we go back to travel. We can travel to places where there are all sorts of tropical diseases and we can get a vaccination against it before we travel, so we can travel safely. So all these things are intertwined. So forward leaps for humankind. So it's not surprising that the first moon landing, so we're talking about aviation, but we're also talking about space travel, because Uranus is very future oriented. It's high tech, it's science fiction become fact, particularly when it comes with the self-belief that we can do this, that comes with Jupiter, the confidence. So the moon landings, first transmission of the internet was also under a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. First of all, it was an intranet. I think it was more of a sort of a closed thing that opened up. And think about that as well. Another thing that made the world a bigger place. Well, a bigger place in terms of the connections that we can make. You know, I can go online now. I mean, well, I will be online when you, this video will be online when I publish it on YouTube. Anyone in the world pretty much can watch it and see what I've got to say about Jupiter conjunct Uranus. I can make a contribution to the commentary, because there's going to be a lot of astrologers, already a lot of astrologers talking about this really interesting and exciting planetary cycle. So we have the internet. Wow. So if it hits your chart in a big way, it will hit your chart in a big way if you have anything in Taurus, the fixed sign of Taurus, specifically between 18 and 24 degrees of Taurus. So as I've said in other videos, you can go on astro.com, and if you don't know your chart, you can get your chart for free, and you can see where Taurus is in your chart and see if there's anything, whether it's an angle, which is the ascendant, descendant, MCIC, or a planet at 18 to 24 degrees of Taurus would be particularly intense for you. But also the other fixed signs as well. So Taurus, we have Taurus is a fixed sign, also Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. So 18 to 24 degrees of those fixed signs. Also, we could look at the earth signs as well. So if you have anything between 18 and 24 degrees of the earth signs, so the earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, and Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, just the three of them. So we can see there that we will have, I'd make it a little bit tighter, so I'd say 19 to 23 degrees. You'll have a trine. A trine is a more flowing, easy aspect. So it's going to be potentially easier for you to initiate or accept the changes that might come your way during this conjunction. It's also easy with a trine to take it for granted a little bit. You know, it's about luck. You might feel, put something down to luck. Jupiter can be quite lucky. I mean, Jupiter, if you get overconfidence and too much hubris, your luck can run out. So that's one of the sort of shadow or risks, really, of going too far with making radical changes in your life. Also, you can look at what house in your chart this conjunction will fall. So Jupiter conjunct Uranus in Taurus. So where is Taurus in your birth chart? Again, you can look at your chart, find your chart for free on places like astro.com, and you can see which house Taurus falls into. As always, I'll put the link to the meanings of the houses. I've got a video with some brief descriptions of meanings of the houses if you don't know what those are. And yes, I'll put that link. Houses are the areas of life, basically. So which area of life, whether it makes a connection, whether Jupiter conjunct Uranus makes a strong connection to any of your planets or angles, it will affect the area of life in which the conjunction falls in. So that's worth having a look at as well. If there is a strong connection, then, you know, breakthroughs, eureka moments, big changes, forward leaps are possible. We have to go out often and make our own luck. So before I look at some more really interesting themes, both on the world level from things that have happened during other conjunctions, but also on the personal level, I just want to very quickly, if you will forgive me, tell you about a talk that I'm giving on the 27th of April. It's called Life Purpose in the Birth Chart. It's for the academyofastrology.co.uk. If you're interested and want to book it, I'll put the link below and you can book that. It's only £20, so it's an absolute bargain. 90 minutes, which includes my talk plus some opportunity for Q&A. So what am I going to be talking about? Well, in our birth chart, we have all sorts of clues to what our life purpose might be. And I'm talking not just about job, career, vocation, that kind of thing, although that is also very easy to see in the birth chart. You know, once you understand all the symbolism and what everything means, when you can read a birth chart, you can apply it very easily to, you know, what career might be good for me. But life purpose is a little bit more than that. It's often what we do as a job, of course, but it's more than that. It's what really makes our hearts sing. It's really how we feel fulfilled in ourselves, but also how we provide a service to the world, whether that's a big service or whether it's something small, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to be talking about that, basically, I'm just completing a book about life purpose. It's not specifically an astrology book, but during that, it's more of a spiritual book, actually. But during that writing of that book, it's taken me about 1.5 years to write it. And I've developed a process. And in this talk, for the first time, I'm going to introduce that process and apply it to astrology. So it not only gives us the clues to what our life purpose could be, but it also helps us to step into that purpose as well. So hopefully you will be able to join us. it's probably most useful if you know a little bit of astrology, if you kind of understand the symbolism of most of the planets. You know that Saturn might be about obstacles and doubts and fears, and the sun is about what's in your heart and about purpose, the moon's about your habits, etc. And so it's going to be most useful for you, I think, if you do know a little bit of astrology, if you from sort of beginner's level, if you can know the basics of reading a chart. And it's also obviously I try to do my talks aimed at as many people as possible. If you're a professional astrologer as well, this might be useful for you to sort of think about when you're working with clients. So thank you for your patience while I plug my my upcoming talk, as I say, 27th of April. Online, of course, online. So let's have a little bit more about Jupiter Uranus. It crashes through boundaries. So on the personal level, think about where you might have been stuck, where you might want to crash through a boundary, where you might want to get through an obstacle. This is a really good inspirational aspect for that. It's a signifier for the rebel, the maverick. It puts the outsider into the limelight, or we might feel like we're the outsider or the underdog, where the underdog rises up. To put that into context, Jupiter Uranus conjunctions are associated with the American Revolution, which was the people who wanted to get rid of the reign of the monarchy and the aristocracy over them, wanted to become a republic. It's also happened, the next Jupiter Uranus conjunction after that coincided with the storming of the Bastille, when all the people rushed the prison and let the prisoners out in France, which led to the French Revolution and France becoming a more equal society, a republic, where all the wealth wasn't just kept in the hands of the very few at the top. So it can challenge the status quo in the world, also in your personal lives. I'm not saying you're going to have like a revolution, but you know, it's a chance to challenge the status quo, or your status quo might be challenged by events that happen around you. Talking about that theme of revolution and rebellion, it's very, very associated with liberation and equality. So again, where do you need to liberate something in your life? Where can you push for more equality? So in recent years, the conjunctions have coincided with the counterculture and protest movement in like 1969, 68, 69. Counterculture protest movement, so we're talking civil rights movement, gay liberation, women's lib, eco-awareness, and anti-war, the anti-war peace movement against the Vietnam War. Most recently, the last conjunction we had, the Arab Spring. If you remember, that people got together to overthrow governments, and that spread quickly. Jupiter expands, so things can spread with Jupiter. And that was in the cardinal signs. I think that was in Aries, that conjunction. So it's very fiery, very warrior-like in Aries. And what's interesting, technology is another big theme. The use, the imaginative use of technology and technological advancements. And the Arab Spring managed to spread because people were using messaging on their phones, so they spread it a lot more easily. Whereas when you think back, well, unless you were there and reincarnated, you think back to the history of, say, the French Revolution. A lot of that was through leafleting and people, word of mouth. The world has opened up and we don't need to produce leaflets anymore. We can just send messages on various different mediums, some of them pretty secret as well. So we want to be seen as individuals. Jupiter, Uranus, we want to be seen as an individual. We want to be seen as someone who is equal. We want freedom from oppression. You might have Jupiter Uranus conjunct in your chart, for example. You might have a Jupiter Uranus square or opposition. And again, these things will be part of your life. But even if not, you might feel some of these ideas, some of these themes, some of these kind of longings for freedom, equality, freedom from oppression. You might feel some of this around you or in yourself as well. We want to reach, as individuals, but also as humanity, we want to reach the peak of new heights. What we think is the peak, that gets pushed up. See how much further we can go. We can always go further. We don't want to go too far and fall off the ledge, and we don't want to push ourselves too much. So we can overdo it. We can do too much, take on so much that we get exhausted. Uranus is associated sometimes with a bit of anxiety or sleeplessness, or that when I talk about awakening, I talk about sort of awakenings in terms of, wow, the progress that you make, both humanity, but also as human beings, and even spiritual process, because spirit awakenings in spirituality, because Jupiter is about spiritual beliefs in a lot of ways. We don't want to be hoodwinked. We don't want to be hoodwinked anymore by the powerful. That's another theme as well. We can see that in the rebellions that took place that I've just talked about. We don't want to be hoodwinked and told that this is the way it is. We want the truth. We want to know what it is. We want to have our own truth. We might make up our own truth. We're in that what we're called quite often the post-truth world. What is the truth? And it's harder to find out what the truth is. We want to find the truth. We want to nail the truth. We want to know what the truth is. And we want to know what our truth is, not the truth that we're being told. So life can feel like an adventure if you're really, really, really into this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, if it's really intensely touching you, touching your chart. Life can feel like an adventure, but possibly a unpredictable one. I hope it's exciting for you. I hope you get eureka moments. I hope you can push forward. I hope you can break down some boundaries. I hope you can get the freedom that you need without everything falling apart, because things can break down during Jupiter Uranus. Break through or break down. I am giving you most of the incredibly positive and exciting stuff because I want you to get excited, but also putting a few little touches in to say, just be a little bit careful, overconfidence, hubris, that kind of thing. For some people, I mean, it's in Taurus. Taurus is the sign that is a fixed sign that doesn't necessarily like change. Change is often forced onto Taurus. And when change comes, it can feel like that an unmovable object and a unstoppable force meeting. And then you can get maybe an explosion. I'm talking metaphorically here, but it is also associated with earthquakes, Jupiter Uranus. So things get shaken up generally, not just the earth gets shaken up potentially, but also I'm not making predictions here, but there is an association with earthquakes and movements, land movements, because Taurus is about the land. What else is Taurus about? Well, eco-awareness, I've already mentioned. In the late 60s, there was the birth of eco-awareness. Now there might be more eco-awareness. There might be new innovations that can help with, for example, climate change, biotech, new eco-tech, new innovations in food production and agriculture. Is potentially one of the positive things that could happen. Tech and aviation. I've already talked about the start of flight. Well, now we're talking about space exploration. You might have already seen that we have a newfound interest in space exploration. There's even talk about going to the moon again. And we also might see things like the beginnings of things like mining in space and manufacturing space. That's a thing that is being looked at. There's a whole company, I think, down in Cornwall in the UK that is working towards putting manufacturing in space, manufacturing parts of satellites and pharmaceuticals, for example. Another thing that this conjunction, Jupiter-Uranus cycle in general, it's about belief systems. Jupiter is about beliefs. Uranus wants something new. It wants to challenge the status quo. So old beliefs are shattered and new ideas come in. I'll give you an example here. Well, a couple of examples for Charles Darwin and Wallace, who both simultaneously they developed the theory of evolution. They announced that theory together, the two of them. They ended up getting together and announcing it, making a joint announcement about the theory of evolution that changed the way we looked at how our world was formed, how species were formed, the origin of species, for example. It had a lot of pushback because the existing paradigm, because this is another thing with Jupiter Uranus, it shatters paradigms. But obviously, like anything is a process. So a new idea comes along and everyone goes, oh yeah, we'll just accept that new idea. No, there's a lot of pushback, but eventually the new idea will come to be the new paradigm, the new status quo, if you like. So it was very controversial because it went against what we were taught, you know, the biblical idea of the origin of man, for example. And even today, it's still controversial in some areas. Some people will, you know, there are some people who will negate the idea of evolution usually on religious grounds. But I think we're having new awakenings. I think we're going to have new awakenings about the mysteries of the universe. There are still so many mysteries in the universe. Ghost particles was something I was reading about recently. They're trying to discover what are ghost particles. What is dark matter is another question. We've got these telescopes that can see to the beginning of the universe, we think, that can see the birth and death of stars we haven't even heard of. So there's that huge expansion in what we know about our universe. Is going to be a lot more of that. And I wonder whether we will see eventually, we'll have the very beginnings that we might not even be aware of at the time, because it'll be in a few years potentially that we start to see the results. There might even be some awareness of consciousness off planet, which is really exciting. That's another real, I think, obsession with some parts of science, that they are actively looking for some form of life on other planets, in other star systems. Another similar thing about how we view our universe was during a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Kepler and Galileo, they confirmed Copernicus's theory of the heliocentric nature of our solar system. Again, the belief of the church, the belief was that we were at the center of the universe and everything, including the sun, went around us. And Copernicus theorized that it was the other way around. The sun was hit the center, and all the planets, including the Earth, went around the sun. So again, that was a maverick idea. It was a dangerous idea. It was paradigm shift. Eventually, it was accepted. It wasn't accepted at first. These were mavericks. But these are things, you know, the evolution, theories of evolution, and the heliocentric nature of our solar system, they disrupted the prevailing belief system. So maybe we'll rethink our idea of consciousness, our idea of God and what is God. Perhaps there'll be new ideas coming through on that. I hope this has been interesting. I hope it's given you a few ideas. You know, it really is something that we can make the most of. Something to really help us to move forward, not just as, you know, human, but not just in the bigger sense of the word in terms of world progress, but in our own lives as well. Where can we make changes? Where can we feel more equal? Where can we liberate our mind? It's liberating our mind. You know, that idea of liberating our mind. It's very Uranus, Jupiter, liberating our mind. I hope you go away, you liberate your mind to new beliefs, new ideas, to new things, and find new freedom. I hope you are able to be your authentic self, be the truth of who you are, rather than who society might want you to be. And I hope you're able to find some freedom in that. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. I've really enjoyed actually putting together this video, doing the research and putting this video together. A lot of the events actually that I talked about are noted in a book called Cosmos and Psyche by Richard Tarnas. If you're interested in mundane astrology, world astrology, it's an absolutely fantastic book that goes into great depth and great detail about the meanings, not just the events, but also the psychological and sociological and philosophical meanings of these outer planet transits. And that you don't actually need to know really any astrology to enjoy and reading this book. So I'll leave you with that recommendation. I'll put the link underneath for the meanings of the houses, but also the link for my talk on the life purpose in the birth chart. Again, thank you so, so much. And I hope to see you again soon. The next video is going to be about the solar eclipse, the total solar eclipse in Aries on the 8th of April. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.